My name's Kimbal. I'm an artist based in London. My work spans a variety of media, including drawing, painting, performance, video, and sound. I was born in London in 1986, and I've lived around here for most of my life. I'm really fascinated by London as a place, and as a place with many layers, many different realities that exist in it. And I think from a young age, I was brought up to really think about this idea that there is no fixed one way perspective of seeing things. That there's always a multitude of different realities in any place, and I feel like London sort of encapsulates that. My star sign is Cancer. The crab is a creature that kind of lives both on water and on land, and sort of sidesteps between the two. It's kind of a bit of this and a bit of that, and I think as time goes by, I realise that I really relate to this as an idea, and I think maybe that's also part of the reason why I've never really aligned myself to one particular medium, but more kind of taking elements of one and another and kind of combining them. I've always loved the work of the abstract expressionists, and I love the idea that a painting is not necessarily just is not necessarily a representation of something, but more the idea that a painting is something in its own right, and that somehow the painting records the traces of how it was made. That it's somehow a remnant of a process. So I've always loved the work of like Mark Rothko, for instance, and Cy Twombly, Helen Frankenthaler. This idea of paintings which record mark making, and free expression, but also works which are really sort of physical and powerful, that are not representations of an image, but that they embody some sort of energy, some sort of power. I'm also interested in this idea that an artwork is an event in itself, that it's a kind of performance. And I started off my painting practice through performance art. At school, I was really influenced by landscape artists, or land artists rather, like Andy Goldsworthy and Richard Long. Sort of thinking about interventions in landscapes, and how those interventions kind of left traces, and those traces were the artworks. That idea has always been really important to me. Also, artists like Francis Alice, who's done a lot of performances with the body in a landscape, such as quite politically charged in some cases, like walking with a can of green paint, dribbling along a line through Jerusalem. It's a piece that really sort of stood out to me. But also things like stuff to do with traces of memories in home. Rachel White Reed's house sculpture, where she filled a house full of concrete and then demolished the house around it, leaving the trace of what was there on the inside. And I love anything to do with maps and alternative representations of spaces and places. So aside from the kind of conceptual focus of my work, painting has always been a more or less constant activity for me. It's a therapeutic thing that I've always done for myself and by myself. But right now, I've recently taken a break from painting over the last sort of year and a half, to really sort of take a step back and sort of reconsider what painting means to me, both to myself and to my practice. And I've recently started a new series of paintings, which are in acrylic paint, which I've not worked in before. I've always worked in oil and varnish and other materials. So I'm working on a series of paintings using acrylic paints, on canvas, and really thinking about brushstrokes, color relationships, dynamic, and this idea of a painting emerging out of a process, and a composition which is constantly changing, constantly developing. Still thinking about the idea of layering, which I've been doing in previous works, with layers of varnish and oil paint mixed together. But in this case, it's more about the immediacy of the brushstrokes, and the marks and the gestures, and how they kind of really capture the traces of my performance of making the painting. I'm also working on a series of tracks, sort of electronic music, which I'm making with sampled field recordings that I've recorded in various places. So taking kind of textural sounds, and sort of mashing them together into and using them to create harmonies, melodies, and rhythms. I think the biggest challenge as an artist is really to keep motivated and to keep going. It's really easy to get pulled into this narrative, that you're only successful if you're making money with your work. But it's really that's not really, or that shouldn't really be the main thing, the main drive. I think the main drive really has to be the passion and the ideas and the feeling for what you do. I found at some point I started actually making a living from my paintings a couple of years ago. It was, I started particularly during the pandemic, actually, bizarrely. And it meant that I sort of lost a bit of sight of my of the reasons why I was painting, and rather sort of becoming almost a factory production line of paintings, with the idea that I was selling them. And so I think it is really important to take a step back sometimes and really look at what you're doing, and think of what is what it's all about, really, and really, yeah, look at what you're doing from a different perspective. Advice to my younger self. Yeah, I think I probably want some advice from my younger self. Um, I feel like I want some of that kind of energy and recklessness that my younger self had, sort of taking some more risks, going on crazy journeys, being more adventurous. But also, I mean, I think, if I think about my future self would tell me something like, be calm, don't don't think too much about, don't become obsessed with money and trying to make a living, but more stay true to your practice, keep on working, keep on doing those kind of things that really make you excited, get that sense of adventure. I think that's really, really crucial. Yeah, like never let go of your your dream, or your sense of adventure. I think that's what it is. I see my work as a process and a journey, and an adventure. And yeah, I think I think I need some of that. When I first started painting, or my first paintings, I was really actually interested in the material processes themselves, and thinking about what the materials might do if left to their own devices. So I was working with things like bitumen paint, even car oil, engine oil, and also natural dyes like coffee and beetroot. A lot of these techniques were really fun to play with, but actually didn't really give sort of very, very successful results. The bitumen paintings were probably the most successful ones, but they never actually fully dried. Some paintings that I did over 10 years ago, are actually still, if you scratch under the surface, the you can see the paint is actually still wet. Um, but some of my paintings I've done over the last few years are with varnish and oil paint mixed together. So I'm using the varnish as a kind of medium, and I really like this idea of kind of building up transparent layers with varnish. It adds this very sort of playful dimension to the paintings. I love listening to music when I paint, and actually I feel that I'm really influenced by the sounds in the music, and it affects my gestures and my brush movements, and also my choice of color and the dynamic and the relationships. Um, but I actually mostly paint in silence, partially because I like the kind of the strong focus of just getting lost into the visual aspects of the painting, rather than being influenced by the sounds. Having said so, a lot of my recent drawings are actually made in response to sound, both music, sort of thinking about textures and rhythms within the music, and sort of translating that into marks with pencil, and also in response to environmental sounds, sort of everyday sounds, like clicks and pops and scratches. And I've got a whole series of drawings which are exploring that as an idea. But the paintings, I do tend to work in silence, and find it quite a meditative experience. But who knows? I don't know. I need to get myself a pair of headphones, and then actually I might start listening to music again when I paint. The best reaction that I've had to my paintings is I hate it. And although that can be something quite hard hitting and hurtful, I love that strong reaction. I love it when people have a strong reaction to the work. And sometimes people don't know why they like or don't like something. It's just a really gut reaction, a gut feeling. And yeah, I think that's really what I like from, that's what I'm trying to do with my work. I want it to have this physical, emotional connection. And if someone says that they hate it, that's great, and then it's interesting to ask why. And but sometimes you can't really put that in words. But yeah, I feel like it's a really special thing to have that gut reaction. I hope that when people look at my paintings, they can essentially be able to trip as much as I do when I make the paintings, or when I look at them. When I look at my paintings, I constantly notice new things. I notice unusual aspects, and things that I've never noticed before while painting. And I hope that people will look at them and see them as kind of portals or windows or doorways into other worlds, imaginary spaces that you can kind of take your own journey into that space and explore within it. People often see things like animals or creatures or beings or I don't know, places that they relate to their own experiences. But I don't really see these things when I paint. I just notice sort of color relationships and shapes and flows and directions and things like this. So yeah, essentially, I hope that people will be able to take these paintings as an exploratory thing, that they don't just look at it and see it for what it is, but more just discover, keep on looking, keep on finding new things. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch and listen, and thanks for inviting me to be part of this platform. My name is Kimbal Bumstead. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as at Kimbal Bumstead. I've got I'm going to be taking part in an exhibition in Leeds on the 5th of August at Sunnybank Mills. It's a drawing exhibition, definitions of drawing. And I also have a solo exhibition at Jane Newbury Gallery in November. But yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to see some updates about that. Cool. Thanks.